And welcome to my summer shirt pattern, where I'm going to show you how to make a summer shirt like this one. If you want anything different, like you'd rather it longer or you want buttons, then please adjust the pattern, add them in and make it however you'd like. And also a little reminder that this pattern isn't for commercial use, so it's only for personal use. So you can make the shirts for yourself, but you can't make them for any sort of sale or anything like that afterwards.
Print out the pattern, making sure the scale is 100% so it prints true to size. Follow the guide to see how the paper fits together to create each pattern piece. There's a number in the top left-hand corner of each piece of paper so you know where each one goes. Once you've laid it all out, fold along the dotted line. These dotted lines are where the pattern pieces meet together, and then using glue or sellotape, join the pieces of paper. Repeat this until you've joined together all the pieces of paper to make the full pattern pieces. Then cut them out using your paper scissors. You should have a back panel, back yoke, collar, front facing, front panel, sleeve and ties. Start by cutting out all your pattern pieces, remembering to snip the notches. Pin the two pleats in the back panel. Sandwich the back panel between the inner and outer yoke and pin all three layers together. Stitch through all the layers at 1 cm and press the seam. Take your front panels and pin the front facing along the front panel of the shirt. We're going to start stitching here, which is marked on your pattern. Stitch at 1 cm, joining the front and the front facing together. Snip off this corner to reduce the bulk. Press the facing seam open and that little bit of collar and turn the collar through using scissors to get a nice point. Put the front panel on top of the back panel and pin along the shoulders. We just want to pin the outer yoke to the front panel, leaving the inner yoke free. Stitch this together. Press the shoulder seam open and push the seam to the back. Then fold in 1 cm seam allowance on the inner yoke and iron this down flat. Put the inner yoke on top of the outer yoke and pin it across the shoulder seam to hide the seam that we just stitched. Top stitch along the edge. Bag out the collar by putting right sides together and stitching around the outer edge as marked on the pattern, leaving the bottom half of the collar free. Snip off the corners to reduce the bulk. Press the collar seam open and iron it flat. Overlock or zigzag stitch along the raw edge of the facing. And press in 1/2 cm all the way down the facing edge. Now we need to insert the collar. Snip diagonally 1 cm into the corner on the front facing and the front shirt neck. With the front facing up, sandwich the collar between the front facing and the shirt neckline. You want this corner bit in the lower collar to match where you snipped. This snip will allow you to turn and stretch the fabric facing to match the length of the collar. When you get to the shoulder seam, you want to fold the raw edge of the front facing in and pin this down. We're going to stitch this down so that all the raw edges are concealed. Flip it over to double check that where you folded is exactly in line with the shoulder seam. Again, matching where the shoulder seam is, we want to snip in on the top layer of collar only at 1 cm. Do the same thing on the other side of the collar, sandwiching it in between the layers and pinning all the way across. At the back neck, only pin the inner collar to the back panel. We're only going to stitch these together and leave the top layer of the collar free. We're going to start stitching here along the back neck, making sure only to do 1 layer of collar and then all the way down to the front. Remembering to stitch down the fold of the front facing when you get to that point And then when you get to the collar, open up the top layer so that only one layer is being stitched. We're going to fold in this top layer, so press it in at 1 centimeter using the iron. Now we need to reduce the bulk here. Carefully snip into the seam allowance and cutting a triangle to trim down the seam allowance on both sides. Make sure to cut through all of the layers. Pin down the front facing fold. This can match the fold of the shoulder seam. Then pin along the back neck. Pin down the front facing, pin along the edge because we're going to top stitch along here. We want to make sure that it lies flat, the front panel, so it may help to add some pins along the centre front fold to really help it lie flat and secure. Now we're going to stitch all the way along the facing, across the back neck and down the other side of the front facing. We're doing a top stitch really close to the edge. At the points to do the back collar, you'll need to stop and pivot and twist the fabric so you can do the turns for the facing. Now we're going to pin in the sleeve, starting at the front and making sure to match the notches at the top of the sleeve head. Stitch at 1 centimeter, then zigzag or overlock the raw edge and press. Now we're going to do the underarm and side seams. Pin the underarm and side seams together, matching the underarm and side seam. We're going to stop stitching 5 centimeters up from the bottom to leave a little vent. Stitch together, overlock or zigzag stitch the raw edges, making sure to open up the vent as you do so that you're only overlocking and zigzagging one side at a time. Press the side seams and press the vent open. Overlock or zigzag stitch along the raw hem, then we're going to double turn it and do the same along the sleeve opening, double turn the raw edge so that we can top stitch it all down. Stitch the double turned hem around the sleeve opening and along the bottom. For the ties, press in 0.5 on each side, then fold this in half and press it down again. Also fold in one of the top ends. Top stitch in one of the folded ends and all the way down the side of the tie to secure it together. Using the pattern, mark the placement for the ties and unpick 1 centimeter of the centre front seam where this pin is marked. Depending on your bust size or body shape, you may want the ties in different places and you may want more ties. Please move them around and add them in if you want more. Open up the area you unpicked and insert your tie, then pin it in. I'm going to top stitch down the very centre front to secure in the ties. I tend to do a double reverse over each tie to make sure it's really secure. To finish the shirt, we want to press in the lower collar. To do this, fold open the front facing and then using the iron, press it in place. You can make this fold as big or small as you like. I usually make the fold all the way down to the front tie to give a nice big opening for the collar.
And we're finished. I hope you enjoyed making it. If you've got any questions, you can drop me a DM at lydiabolton_ on Instagram.